what is the TOEFL? What are we doing here? Okay, the TOEFL is obviously a test of English. It's administered by Americans, and it is a measurement of your English proficiency. So they are testing the 4 parts of language which you have to know: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It's mostly used for admission to colleges and universities. As I can see, most of you are younger, so you're probably looking to do this. It is not just though for this. It is a good exam to have. It's similar to the FC that you have here in the British system. This is the kind of test that they're going to be looking for you to have when you go to America to see some English proficiency. So it's just a basic English examination. A lot of people ask me, this is something I'm just going to throw in, a lot of people ask me if it's better to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. They're the same thing. There is no such thing as better, there is no such thing, it's just different. It's a little bit different style. For certain mindsets, TOEFL is easier. For certain other mindsets, the IELTS is easier. But as an exam, they're exactly the same. The only difference, when I say whether it's easier or not, is the IELTS is still on paper, and the TOEFL is on the computer. So that's really the only difference between them. But we'll get to that as we go along. The reason that we talk about universities is that you have to check with your university where you're going, what score you need. A lot of times people come and say, I don't know what score I need. Each school has their own requirements. Alright? So there is no one grade that you need. There's no such thing as you need a 60 or an 80 or whatever. Each school has their own requirements. So you need to find out where you want to go, what you want to do, and what your school requires. Alright? That's the basic question that everybody asks. It's very school specific. Alright? And we'll talk a little bit more about scoring when we get to the end. But just right away, so you know, there is no perfect score. Well, there is a perfect score, but there is no area to be in. Each school is different. Does that make sense? You need to plan how you're going to study for this. You need some materials to help you. There's no way to do this exam by yourself. So you need to find some materials. Currently, right now, the program that I'm using is called Longman. It's my favorite out of all of them. It's honestly the best way to do this. It really sets it up for you in a very organized way and tells you what you need to do in step-by-step process. But they're all good in their own way. Kaplan, Cambridge, ETS itself. ETS is the company that gives you the exam. So ETS themselves has their own program which you can purchase. So if you want to go from the people who make the exam, that might be the best way to go for you. But I personally recommend the Longman. They're all very similar, but you need something. You can't just take a book and figure out. You need an actual CDs, like a plan, something you actually find and get organized and actually go step by step and learn. All right, so. And then the second part of this is, there's this part of the exam which is speaking and writing. You have to find somebody that's going to grade your speaking and your writing. That's very problematic. You can get offline, Kaplan, and go step by step, but who's going to actually listen to you or read your writing and grade it? So those are the key, and that's half the exam. So you really have to find somebody that's going to be able to grade your reading, or your speaking and your writing. All right? That's a key part of this. And you have to have someone that's going to really push you to do the speaking, do the writing. The writing is something that I focus on a lot, and we'll talk about it more as we go through the presentation. All right? And then obviously before the exam, sit down and take an entire exam. Go through the whole 4 hours. This exam lasts 4.5 hours. All right? You have to sit down in a room for 4 hours and take an exam. So why not try to do that before the actual exam? So get someone to be there for the speaking and the writing, and then do the reading and the listening, and actually sit down and take the exam. It's really crucial for you to take a mock exam, because if you think that you're just going to be able to sit in a room for 5 hours and take an exam, you're not. It's just not how it works. So you really have to, pace yourself, do an hour, then 2 hours, and 3 hours, and so forth. So, this is one of the big things that I tell people. Take a practice entire exam. Take a couple of them, all right? So mock exam is a key part to preparing for the test. There are 4 parts to the test that we talked about: reading, listening, speaking, writing. They're all graded. on the same scale, and we'll talk about grading again at the end, but they're all weighed the same. They last different times though, all right? Reading is the longest, followed by listening. Speaking is the shortest, and writing is somewhere in the middle, right? Speaking is about 20 minutes, so you're in and you're out. It's very quick, and it actually usually goes in this order, all right? You'll do your reading first, then your listening, then you'll have a break, then you'll have speaking and writing. So usually you only have one break. Now, they do change the exam. The exam changes. It's not always the same one for everybody. You might get a break in different times, but in general, reading, listening, then a break, then speaking and writing. All right, in that order. So just so you have an idea of what's waiting for you in an exam. Now we're going to break down the different parts, okay? First, the reading section. All right? It will be at least 3 academic reading passages, each one followed by questions. So you will read and you will answer questions. Why is at least in bold? Because you could have 4, you could have 5. You don't know how many you will have. All right? So at least 3. And that's why I put at least. All right? And that's how most exam is. You can have more, you can have less. I mean, there are times we'll have just 3 for weeks and weeks, and then somebody will get 5. So you really don't know how many you're going to have. All right? But if you prepare well, it really doesn't matter how many you have, because you're prepared for it. All right? Obviously about 650 to 750 words. So it's not like you're getting, these huge novels. You're getting about a page, a little bit more than a page. So I mean, it's long, but it is readable. All right? You just have to be able to go through it. There are certain question types that combine, standard questions and new questions, that they're testing out. So you'll have to explain, you'll have to demonstrate that you've learned, how to read and answer those specific questions that they have. And they have exactly certain types of questions. All right, there are only these types of questions. You will have vocabulary, sentences and sentence structure, details and detail analysis, inferences, and narrative analysis. So those are your 5 question types. If you learn all 5 question types, then you will be ready for no matter how many questions you have. And that's actually one of the things that we focus on at American Studio is these question types. And that's why I prefer certain systems over other systems. And we'll talk about different ways you can do it. You don't have to follow this method. But if there is a simple way to do it, I always try to make it simple. And I think that if you can learn the question types, then you are ready for anything that you come on an exam. It's almost like math. Once you learn the formula, you know what to do all the time. So that's the way that I try to teach it, and I think that it's the simplest way to learn it. All right? But there are other things that you can do to help you. All right? You have to read a lot because speed is also a factor. You are on a time restriction. You have 1 hour to answer 40 questions. So you have to be able to read quickly. So just reading a lot, is something that will help you. I always tell everybody 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day is a lot. It's a lot because it's every day. It's not, I didn't do 10 minutes today, I'll do 20 tomorrow. That's not how it works. It has to be every day. It's like a living, breathing animal, language. You have to live it, you have to breathe it. Well, if you leave it, it'll die, just like an animal. So, you have to do something every day. The more you read, the better you'll do. And reading is, by far, the most demanding and difficult section, in my opinion. They're all kind of difficult, but reading really takes a lot out of you. And it's first, so you still have 3 other parts afterwards, So you really have to focus, and be able to read quickly. So just read as much as you can. It's not a skill you just get, you have to do a lot of extensive reading from different, you have to read on a screen, it's just getting ready for that kind of environment. It's very intense, all right? And like I said, timing and concentration. There are times where your concentration falls, you have to be able to, just take a step back, take a deep breath, and then start again. And that's why I was saying a mock exam, practicing, all of these things will help with your timing and your concentration. Most of your text will be from something in one of these categories. Social science, that's like anthropology, sociology, something like that. Then you have science and technology, that'll be something in biology, chemistry, something like that, all right? Then you'll have something in history, and it'll be North American history, all right? So it'll be America, Canada, they'll sometimes even have Mexico, Latin America. So it will be something from North America, art, and biography, that is, they will tell you a story about someone. That one's very common. You'll hear that one a lot. So these are your general. Now, obviously, they can throw in something that no one's ever seen, but in a general, arena, these are the things that they will have. All right. This is my personal things that I want you guys to think about as you're thinking about this exam. Keep a journal with new vocabulary and refer to it regularly. So when you're reading on your own, write down those words that you didn't understand. Don't just look them up on Google Translate and then move on. All right? Write them down, have a pad and paper, and write down those words. If you have your own dictionary, you'll actually look at it. Who has an English dictionary at home? Everybody. Who's actually opened it?
Everybody.
Not as often as you should. Not as often as you should. I guarantee it, you do not go to that dictionary as often as you should. But if you have your own, you will flip through it because those are words that you saw in your life, right? And you will see them again. That is for sure. And especially for this exam, they like to repeat words. So keep a journal of your own words. All right? You will have to learn some kind of vocabulary in general. Now, what I recommend to everyone is prefixes and suffixes. This is one of those things that is so basic that people skip over it. English is based on Latin, all right? It's based on Latin. Some of you may have taken Latin in school, all right? It's based on Latin, so we have these things called prefixes and suffixes. Those are things that we add to the front and the end of words to make other words. So if you learn what a prefix means and what a suffix means, then you know what that word means. Alright? So, imaginable, unimaginable. Un is a prefix that means the opposite. If you know what un means, then you know what the opposite is of 1,000 new words. You understand? It's really the most basic way to expand your vocabulary. There are 6 million words in the English language. 6 million. One of the smartest men, Winston Churchill, knew 60,000. That's 10%. Alright? He was one of the smartest men out there. So how many are we going to know? How many are you guys going to know? You're never going to be able to learn enough words to just memorize them. You have to try to systematically expand your vocabulary. This is the best way to do it. I promise you. None of my students do it. They choose the second option, which is actual vocabulary. Now there are lists of words for the TOEFL that you can memorize. That's kind of the way you guys learn here in Serbia. Memorize everything, go to the exam, then forget everything. If you plan to study in another country, that's not going to work, all right? Just not going to work. But if you just want to take the exam, there are lists of words. I have them. I give them to the students. Most of them choose to do that because they think it's easier. That's fine. You can do whatever you want. But my recommendation is try to do things like this, like prefixes, suffixes. There are other things you can do, other tricks you can do to expand your vocabulary, but this is the basic, all right? If you learn those, you will exponentially increase your vocabulary, all right? Speed reading. I mean, you're going to have to find information within the text very quickly. So skimming and speed reading. What is that? It's a skill used to quickly find information in text. When you read a newspaper, you probably read a passage quickly, in order to find what you need. You don't actually read the whole thing, right, word for word. That's a skill that you have in Serbian. That's also a skill that will help you on this exam and in general in English, all right? I mean, it's a basic skill that you will need. You will have to find keywords in the question and look for those keywords in the exam. So skimming is a skill and you have to work on it. Alright? You will have to find certain words. They will say, where in the entire passage, the author says this, where. And you've got to find what he said and what it meant, and you have to find it first before you can answer a question. And if you start at the beginning and have to read every sentence, you're not going to have enough time. So skimming is a skill. You gotta learn it for the exam, and in general, it's a good skill to have, all right? And obviously, like I said, you should learn all of the question types, all right? There are only 5 of them. There's not a million. Learn them, understand them. When you see it, you know what to do, all right? That's the key. And that's what I work on the most. All right, so that's the reading. Pretty simple. Any questions about the reading? If you think of anything, I'll let you guys ask questions at the end.
The most important is aloud.
What?
Aloud reading.
Is it what?
Aloud.
No, it's just on the screen. You just read. I don't understand your question.
Yes, but for you and for your examination and for practicing any kind of foreign language, the most important while reading is reading aloud.
I mean, you can read aloud at home, but you have to find a way to read it. I don't think you read in Serbian aloud, do you?
No.
Well,
in English,
you have to bring your language style. You can't be in a room full of 20 people and you're reading out loud and everybody else is quiet.
This is a different situation. If you are with your computer, you are in position to read aloud.
Yeah, absolutely, but that's what we're talking about.
Much better.
And I agree with you in a certain sense, but then you have to understand you're going to an exam. You can't just overnight stop reading out loud. You see, that's again something you have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to slowly practice and stop reading out loud. You can't just overnight stop reading out loud. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not a bad thing when you're starting, but
listening and reading, these two things at the same time, better results.
I don't know. For you, everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. You know, you're an oral learner. There's three kinds of learners. There's oral, there's a practical, you know, and then there's, you know, reading and applying. So, you know, different people learn in different ways. So, you know, maybe for you it's oral, and that's fine, you know, but you have to find a way to, you know, not read out loud because you're in a room full of 20 people. So,
in this situation, no.
On this exam, yes. You know. That's the problem. All right, so listening. All right, new section, new things you have to do. Obviously, it's your understanding of English. Once again, at least 2 conversations and 4 classroom lectures. That's a total of 6 listening passages. I had someone who took the exam last week. They had 10. So you really, once again, don't know how many you're going to have, and you really have to just learn how to do it and not worry about how many you're going to have. All right? You listen, you take notes, and then you get the questions. So you only get to hear it once. That's the key. You got to take good notes. Taking notes is what the whole listening passage is about. All right? If you didn't take good notes, you won't be able to do it. No matter how well you listen. I mean, sometimes I do these listenings and I try not to take notes. I can't answer all the questions because, you know, they find some detail that you should have written down. So you really have to take very good notes. The second question type is this. There will be questions that measure your ability to understand meaning and attitude. All right, so tone, right? If you've watched movies or heard someone speak in English, this section should not be a problem, but it is something that you have to practice, you know. What kind of tone is a professor using? What kind of reaction does that person have to what their friend told them? You see, those kind of questions will be on there, and that's very practical. This test in general is very practical because it tests real life situations. You know, when they make a joke, do you understand that it's a joke? When the professor is, you know, really exasperated with the students, do you understand that he doesn't want to deal with them anymore? So, you know, these kind of interactions between people is something that you will need in real life, and they test you on that. So questions about details and questions about meaning and attitude. So what are some of the things that we need to, you know, do? I mean, obviously, you gotta take full advantage of the fact that you can take notes. I tell all my students, as soon as you walk in there, they give you 2 booklets. I say, ask for 2 more. I mean, use the whole sheet. I have people that try to like write around other notes, and you know, don't do that. All right? Take as much paper as you need, scribble all over it, take good notes. All right? Keywords, catchphrases, you know, especially in conversations. All right? Those are some of the things that you have to write down. But once again, listening and note-taking are skills. You have to practice. All right? You're not going to know what day 1. You know, I always take notes with my students, you know, when we take notes. And I tell them, well, look at what I wrote down and look at what you wrote down. Now, obviously, I know what the questions are going to be, but I still take the notes that I would normally take. You know, things that I know are not going to be questions, but I write them down to show them you have to write down certain things. You know, if they give you examples of something, you know, those are good things to write down. You know, connections between things. All right? Those are all things to write down. Use abbreviations. You know, if they say Europe and America, US, EU, you know, those are things that will help you, you know. Mark down things that are emphasized, you know, use arrows. Draw all over your paper, connect information, special symbols. You know, put a number 1 between the first, if he says, when we talk about 3 things, he says the 3 things, and then he talks about the first one, you know, use numbers, all right? anything you can do that will help you make better notes. And once again, these are things that you have to practice, and you just have to keep practicing until it gets easier, all right? And that's really what the listening is about, taking good notes, understanding the information, and then answering the questions, all right? You have to listen for certain keywords that will show you when good information is coming. Therefore, finally, furthermore, these are signals that an important idea is coming. Transition words, all right? All transition words are good things for you to think about when you're taking notes that something important is coming, all right? And last but not least, you have to listen from the beginning till the end. They will always have a question either about the very beginning of the lecture or the very end of the lecture, right? They will say something like, last class we talked about, cheese. This class we're going to talk about meat. And they're going to have this whole lecture about meat, and then a question is going to come, what was last class about? And you have to know it was cheese. So you have to listen from the beginning till the end. Especially if it's a lecture, they'll say that the professor will say, class is over, right? And you'll be like, oh, I'm done. You're not done, you're not on his class, all right? You're on a test. So he'll say, next class, we're gonna study, I don't know, this or this. Or next class, we're gonna have a quiz. And the question will come, what's gonna be next class? Why do they do that? Because they want you to pay attention from the beginning till the end. All right? There will always be at least one question about one of those. There might be one about both. There might be one about just one, or there could be any combination. But listen from the beginning until the very end. They will always ask you a question about one of those. All right? Just a little trick that I noticed from the exam. All right? I think that's it for listening. Is that right? All right. So any questions about the listening? All right. So when we're talking about the speaking section, all right, speaking section is a shorter section. It's 20 minutes, and it's a sprint. And now you've done this huge reading, this huge listening, and now you got to do a sprint, right? So it's not easy. It's a sprint at the end of the marathon, all right? There are exactly 6 questions in these 3 categories. And they're always in this order, and they're always these 6 questions, all right? So it's not very difficult, but there's just a certain way you have to do it, all right? And you have to practice it. So there are exactly 6 questions, and they're exactly this order, all right? So there are 3 categories. 2 independent tasks about familiar topics, right? You state, explain something, and then you have to support your response. You can use personal experiences, you can talk about yourself. This isn't something where they're, expecting some, some class material. That's what these other categories are about, right? So this is independent. It's what you think. You can lie. They're not going to come knock on your door and make sure that's what you think, all right? So you have to have examples and reasons. You have to support your response. That's the key. You can't say, if there's a question, do you agree or disagree? You can't just say, I agree. You have to say why, how, when, where, all those good questions, all right? The 5 W's, all right? Who, what, where, when, why, and how. You have to answer some of those questions and try to get into the topic, all right? This section, you have 15 seconds to think about it, and then 45 seconds to talk. All right? So you're talking for 45 seconds, you have 15 seconds. So they're not expecting you to really prepare. They're just expecting you to be able to think of something very quickly, get ready, and talk. All right? So that's what I'm saying. This is a sprint now. You have to be ready for it. All right? There's 2 questions like that. Okay? Then we have 2 questions that are integrated questions. All right? What does integrate mean? Well, we already did reading and listening, so now we're going to use those skills in the speaking. So you're going to have something to read, something to listen to, and then you will talk on that subject. All right? One task is campus, the other is academic. What does that mean? Campus is conversation between 2 people, usually friends, maybe professor, student, all right? And then classroom is just a professor lecturing something, all right? And there are certain ways to approach these problems, and that's something that you will have to get into when you study, for this. So I just want to give you guys a, general outline of what's going to happen, all right? Then you have the final category, just listening. So now you're just going to listen to something, and then you're going to talk about it. Once again, campus, and once again, lecture, classroom. Alright? And that's really what the speaking is about. It's those 6 questions. You learn what the questions are, you learn how to answer them, and then no matter what the subject is, you'll know what to do. Now, will you always be able to answer it perfectly? Absolutely not. But that's why you practice more. Once again, there's listening. Take notes. You get to take notes whenever you want. Paper is with you. They never say you can't take notes. You can take notes on a reading if you want. Alright? They give you paper in the beginning. You can draw on it. You can do whatever you want. Alright? So it's with you the whole time. And use it. If you ever have listening, write something down. Does that make sense? Alright, writing. There are 2 types of writing tests on the writing section. Okay, one is integrated, one is independent. Once again, integrated, independent. What are we going to have? Obviously, we'll talk about those styles, but like I said, this is a computer exam now. You got to know how to type. If you don't know how to type, this is not going to work. And I'm not just saying typing, email, Facebook, okay? You have to know how to put a period, 2 spaces, capital letter, commas, punctuation. If you don't know where to put punctuation, you're not going to do well. Okay? They are looking for those things. They aren't going to take an entire point off for it. But if you have that and you have this, they're going to, it all adds up. I always tell people the speaking and the writing, it's not the same as the reading and the listening. Here, you get more points for everything that you do right. They're not going to necessarily take points off all the time. But they will give you points if you're better than everybody else. And punctuation is something that, honestly, if you're going to school somewhere and you plan on doing anything in life in English, that's the first thing people will look at. If you give a CV to someone that is missing a comma somewhere, just a comma, they're not even going to look at it. They're going to throw it away. A lot of times. If they have a lot of applicants, that little stuff will make a difference. Because if you can't pay attention to do that detail, what are you going to mess up on the job? You see? So those kinds of things, it takes literally one day to just sit down, but it takes a lifetime to make sure you do it right. Alright? So little things like that, learn how to type on a computer properly, not just, whatever. So just take the time to do that, believe me. It'll help you in your future, alright? So, integrated task. Read something short. It's shorter than obviously the reading, 250 words, and then you listen to part of a lecture. Alright? Obviously note taking is allowed, alright, like we talked about. And you will be, and as soon as the listening is done, you get the reading back. So if you didn't finish reading something, you get time to do it. But the thing is, as soon as listening is done, your 20 minutes starts. You have 20 minutes to write 150 to 225 words. So if you're taking time out of that 20 minutes to read something, you're losing time. Once again, time is always a factor. Alright? You will never, people always ask me this, you never ever have to express your personal opinion. Alright? It's usually very simple. They'll ask you, what is the connection between the reading and the listening? And you're going to have to tell them that. And there's obviously ways you can do that in a very simple and concrete way. Organize your writing. Think about what you're going to say, but don't tell them what you think. Don't ever tell your personal opinion. Here, they won't tell your personal opinion. That's what you'll do in an independent task. Alright? So just make sure you understand what they're asking you and, answer their question. Alright? And that's actually something in general that I want to say. Answer the question. What's the question? Answer the question. You won't believe how many times somebody gets a question and they write all this stuff, but they never actually wrote, I agree, I disagree. Those kind of little things make the difference. It's part of your organization and your structure. You have to have it, right? So, don't express your personal feelings, just answer the question. Alright? 20 minutes, like I said, 150 to 225 words. The independent, is 30 minutes and 300 words, minimum. So that's about 100 words every 10 minutes, What is that? Like 10 words a minute? So that's, you have to know what you're going to say. Now there are ways to approach this. You have to be organized, you have to be able to support your ideas, obviously standards, vocabulary, grammar, but it's not any special topic. You're not going to get something you've never heard of. It's general, unanswerable, philosophical type of questions. Like I said, agree, disagree, what are the characteristics of a good person? There's actually 5 topic types. Like I said before, there's exactly, certain, there's only certain types of questions on this exam. Once you learn the types, you're good to go. All right. So that's it. That's literally the writing. Each section is graded on a scale of 0 to 30. All right. So even though speaking is only 20 minutes, it's still worth 30 points. But if you think about it, you have 6 questions. Each question is worth 5 points. See? So they break it down. All right. They break it down, and you really just have to, understand that every section is worth the same. There is, people like to say, oh, this is more important. There's no such thing as more important. You get 1 grade out of 120. All right. Now, obviously, there's a note here. Some schools will say you need a better score in the reading, for instance, and the writing because you're going to this and this school for this and this. But if you're going for communication, maybe they'll ask you to have speaking and writing or listening. You see? So some schools do reserve the right to tell you specifically what you need. A lot of schools will say you have to have a minimum of, for instance, 20 on each part with an overall score of 85, which means you have to pick up 5 points somewhere else, right? So there's combinations, and each school reserves the right to give you that, all right? I mean, obviously, you have to practice everything. I wrote this about 4 times, and it's really important to practice as much taking notes. I tell people, watch something on TV that's in English. I mean, there's cable now, we got Discovery Channel, we got National Geographic. Sit down and take notes. If you can pick up what they're saying about lions, you can pick up what they're saying about archaeology on the exam. So, take notes, and once again, you write down those words that you learn in your, in your book that you have of words, your dictionary. So, as much practice as you can get, do it. One of the things that I tell everybody is, when you're practicing for the exam, learn everything without the time constraint. A lot of people try to use that time constraint right away because they think that it's better to just know how much time you have right away and just do that. Forget the time constraint. Learn how to answer questions. It doesn't do you any good if you answer all 40 questions in an hour and you only get 25% right. It's better to get 50% right and only answer, 75% of the questions. You'll get more points. They have changed the grading though. There are no more negative points. There used to be negative points, now there's not. If you answer a question right, if you don't, it doesn't matter. So I always tell everybody, at the end, just go through and click on all A, all B, answer every question. But it's much more important. By the time you get to that time factor, you should know how to do the problems. That's all this is about. Just my suggestion. I've had people do it without it, but for my students, I always have them learn the types, practice, 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 and then when I turn on the time, you won't even notice it because you're already doing it fast enough. You might have to just adjust a little bit. So try to do it without the time and then turn on the clock. That's pretty much it. The only thing I would say is, about the scoring, one last thing is, people ask me what's a good score. I always say the test is out of 120. Everything over 61 means you know English because 60 is half the knowledge, right? So 61 and up is, in my opinion, a score that you can say, okay, I know something about English. All right? Everything under is you're just trying to do this exam for a school that's telling you you don't really need it. All right? Most schools that I've seen ask for at least an 86. So I've seen 110, 105. I actually had one student who needed 105, but he's like, I want to get the best score possible. And that's what I tell everybody is don't get caught up on that score. Do the best that you can. Because if you can't get an 86, then you can't get an 86. Then that means you're not doing what you need to do. You should be aiming for 120. That's what score you're looking to get. And if you really put hard work into it, you can get 120. Believe me. I had a student get 119. That means he literally made one mistake on the entire exam. Why? Because he came 5 days a week, wrote me an essay every day. He brought his writing up. Like, he would ask me for that punctuation. He's like, if I put a comma in the wrong place, that's -1. I'm like, all right, I'll grade you like that. So it's, what do you want out of this? What is your goal? All right, everything is possible. You can do 119 out of 120. You can do 120. People always say it's impossible. No, I actually had somebody that did it. So, It's not impossible if you really put hard work into this, you put the time into it. That's the key, the time. Every day, you have to do something every day. If you do that, you're going to be fine and you'll get the grade that you deserve. Not 86, the grade that you deserve. Does that make sense? Absolutely. All right. Any questions? Think about it for a minute. Have you guys all looked at the TOEFL before? Has anybody here never seen the TOEFL, or you? All right. Does it make sense since you've never even looked at it? I mean, go to TOEFL.org. I mean, go to it. They have a lot of information there about things you can do, and you know, there's all kinds of stuff on the internet, guys. But you gotta start with the program, like I said in the beginning. You gotta set something up. You have to be organized. If you just think you're gonna sit down and learn this, you're not. So you gotta get organized. You have to have a plan, and you know, like I said, practice every day.
Speaking and having a fellow with whom is much better and easier to learn.
Well, you know what, like I said in the beginning, you can't do the speaking and the writing without somebody to grade you. I mean, they have these things online, and it's expensive. You know, I mean, if you go to TOEFL.org, they have this program. You pay, I think it's like almost, how much is it? Like $180 to almost €200. You know, and you get everything. You get the books, you get the CDs, and they have someone you talk to, you send your writing to, but you only get to send so many. You know, you get to send, I think, I don't even know, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to throw a number out there, but I don't think it's that many. From people I've heard that talk about it, we're not that satisfied because, you know, you have to talk with someone every day. Somebody has to be correcting you. Somebody has to show you what you're doing wrong for the question. You have to answer a question, right? Remember what we said? You have to answer a question. So it's not just about being able to speak. It's being able to answer that question in an organized and short way. And I actually forgot to tell you the other parts. I totally forgot. I apologize. Remember how we talked about in speaking the 3 categories? The first category, you had 15 seconds and 45 seconds. In the second, the reading and the listening, you have 30 seconds to think about it and prepare, and you have 1 minute to talk. 1 minute. And then the just listening category, those 2 questions, you have 20 seconds to think about it and 1 minute to talk. So those 2 categories is 1 minute, that first one is 45 seconds, basically. All right? Sorry about that, I forgot about that. Just write down the slide, something for next time. Every time you do this, you learn something new. So, yeah. Any other questions?
How much time do we need?
Depends on where you're at now. You know, I usually do an analysis first day, see where you're at, see what you know, see what you don't know. But if you have a system, I prepare people in a month if they knew what they were doing and they went quickly enough.
And if they are really fluent in English?
No, fluency is not the problem. If you have time to prepare for the test, believe me, fluency is not an issue. I've had people that were not very fluent and thought they would get a 20 and ended up getting a 50. Just because this is still an exam, there are still tricks. And if you learn enough English in that time, but I mean they went for 3 months, they didn't go for 1 month. But fluency helps, obviously, just like with any language, but this is still an exam. I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't have gotten a 119 on this test first time out, like my student did. I definitely wouldn't have, just because, you know, it's still an exam. You still have to prepare for it.
But not alone. With somebody in company, always in company, it's easier and it's more interesting too.
Obviously, you know, if you have, it's more about motivation, I think. You know, if you have somebody with you that's doing it, then you're motivated.
Of course.
You know,
it's
and that's the key to the situation.
Alone, it's a bother.
Yes, absolutely.
And as any other thing in life.
Yeah. In the back? Any questions? All right, guys, thank you for your time. If you want any more information, these are our contact informations. Like I said, I'm the main guy doing this, so if you come to me, I will definitely get you the best score that you can get. So, thank you for coming, and that's it.